Discover the amazing story of a black CIA agent turning an unexpected arrest into a two-mile victory. Marcus Jefferson slid into his seat at the polished conference table, his breath catching in his throat as adrenaline flared within him. A routine analysis report lay before him, numbers and intelligence woven into a tapestry of insights. Everything was meticulously prepared, yet beneath the surface, there existed an insidious tension that simmered, whispering doubts through his mind. In this world of elite analysts and understated experts, he felt small and unseen. Even as voices around him praised meritocracy, he wrestled with the gnawing thought that his contributions would vanish unheard. The thinly veiled skepticism within the agency grated on him, sending his racing mind into directions of self-doubt. With each passing day, he questioned if decades of diligent work were enough to combat the shadows cast by systemic biases. How had he, a diligent professional, wound up in an environment where merit felt overshadowed by prejudice? His thoughts spiraled before the storm broke loose. In an instant, the door swung open, and uniformed officers sprang into the room. They called his name. "Marcus Jefferson, you're under arrest." Their words felt like jagged shards tearing into his reality. Stunned silence enveloped the room. Colleagues exchanged uneasy glances, their gazes no longer warm but laden with judgment. As they dragged him from the meeting, horror gripped him as the stark truth clawed at his insides. A crime he didn't commit, betrayal from an institution he devoted himself to. The CIA, the very sanctuary he believed would recognize his resolve, now became a storm of accusations. Frantic thoughts churned in his mind. Was this the reckoning for being a black man trying to claim a space in a field dominated by whispers? He thought about his father's lessons on resilience, the stern words inherited from generations before him. But where was the justice in all that? Life shifted in slow motion, and he felt the weight of every stare, each lingering glance a reminder of societal scrutiny. Would he become a statistic, reduced to the color of his skin in a system that seemed determined to keep him down? Hours turned into an eternity, filled with anguish while he awaited the unknown. The suffocating grip of despair was momentarily eased by the arrival of his family. They offered love wrapped in concern. Yet beneath their soothing reassurances, Marcus recognized the faint echo of a legacy he kept hidden, the story of an uncle wronged by the same shadows that now loomed over him. They too understood the struggle against a system that delighted in dismissal. The pain coursed through him even as he clung to that flicker of hope. What if he unearthed the whispers of truth left behind by his uncle? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Marcus felt the reality around him shift as he began to dig deeper. Each document he unearthed exposed not just the mechanisms of his downfall, but a systemic rot within the very institution he served. The rage and desperation fueled him, threatening to ignite into a fire of unrest, punishing the injustice he faced. As whispers danced at the edges of discovery, the clock continued its relentless tick. The pressure mounted. A potential lawsuit against the CIA loomed ahead like a primal roar. Would it merely amplify his pain, or could it allow him to stand as a voice for those lost beneath the weight of power? Just as he navigated through the treacherous waters of ambition and despair, an anonymous tip arrived like a sharp jolt. The chaos it bred sent him spiraling into uncertainty, a realignment of everything he had pushed forward to reclaim. Now, as he stood almost at the precipice of vindication, the shadows deepened, leaving him caught between the fierce ideals of justice and the reality of a system hungry to silence his truth. Marcus leaned back against the cold, hard plastic of the uncomfortable chair in the holding cell, absorbing the weight of his new reality. The flickering fluorescent lights above cast harsh shadows on the concrete walls, as if amplifying the turmoil roiling within him. Each passing minute transformed the physical confinement into an emotional crucible, steeped in reflections on his life choices, career aspirations, and the injustices he could no longer ignore. His entire career had been built on a foundation of careful calculations, but now he felt as if he were standing at the edge of a chasm, staring into the darkness below. This moment, he mused, could either mark the end of his professional path, or the catalyst for a profound transformation. It was his choice to make. He glanced at the small window that offered a partial view of an overcast sky, clouds thick and oppressive. Life outside continued, yet he felt like a forgotten ghost roaming the halls of his own existence. The irony was colossal. An elite CIA agent caught in a wrongful accusation, surrounded by whispers that echoed his uncle's fate. Each whisper seemed to conspire against him. But in the midst of despair, Marcus found a strange comfort in the compulsion to fight. The truth was within reach, waiting patiently for him to uncover it. Determined to harness that outrage into action, Marcus began to strategize. He mentally cataloged every piece of evidence he could understand, the specifics of his arrest, the circumstances surrounding it, and, most critically, the roots of the accusations. The tip that had arrived so abruptly flashed in his mind, its implications growing clearer. A malicious plot, perhaps? A frame job? The motivation of those who stood behind the veil of authority took shape, and as he conceived scenarios, he felt a muscular surge of empowerment. He envisioned his next steps, methodically unraveling the truth. The CIA had powerful enemies within its own ranks. Navigating those treacherous roads required stealth, cunning, and a survival instinct sharpened by years of intelligence work. He had dedicated his life to analysis and insight. Now he must apply those skills to save himself. The arrival of his attorney jolted him from reverie, a moment of warmth cutting through the cold isolation. Janelle was intelligent and fierce, the kind of ally that refused to accept defeat. Their discussions illuminated strategies, revealing options for both legal recourse and exposure. With each interaction, he marshaled a growing sense of agency, knowing that their combined efforts could surface truths the agency wished to keep buried. Janelle leaned closer to him, her voice steady. "Marcus, to win this battle, you need to do more than defend yourself. You must position this as a fight against systemic injustice. Focus on the bigger picture. It could galvanize your case." The prospect sent a shiver of realization through him. He could turn this personal ordeal into a public reckoning, a crystallizing moment that might reshape perceptions about race, systemic oppression, and accountability within powerful institutions. The tension associated with this revelation was palpable. He would not just fight for himself, but for the countless individuals whose stories remained untold. Staring into Janelle's eyes, he felt the flicker of hope ignite. A chance to reclaim not only his life but also to shine a light on injustice. A chance to bear witness for his uncle, an opportunity to reshape his future and stand as a beacon for those caught in a web of prejudice. In that moment, the shadows surrounding Marcus no longer felt as foreboding. They transformed into potential. But hidden layers of resistance loomed ahead. The deeper he plunged into this fight, the more dangerous the battle would become. As he pondered this, a chilling thought crossed his mind. Who within the agency was watching him closely, waiting patiently to extinguish the fire he had just ignited? The lines for confrontation were drawing closer, and soon he would have to decide how bold he was willing to be in this high-stakes game. Where fear once held reign over his heart, determination now uncoiled. It was time to engage in the ultimate face-off against an unseen adversary. A confrontation that could either lead to complete downfall or unprecedented victory. The moment drew nearer as he steeled himself, knowing that the real battle was about to begin. But the question lingered in the air like a sharp blade. Would he emerge victorious, or would he find himself entrapped in the very system he sought to expose? Marcus's mind raced with strategies as he considered the weight of his current situation. The holding cell felt more like a canvas on which he would paint his comeback. Though physically constrained, his mind surged with possibilities, churning through every piece of the puzzle he could grasp. The system had wronged him, but it was this very injustice that could shift the narrative in his favor. His conversations with Janelle resonated within him. She had laid the groundwork for a game plan that transcended mere defense. He envisioned a press conference, a carefully orchestrated media blitz, that could draw public attention to the larger issues at play: corruption, racial bias, institutional failures. But this couldn't be just about him. It needed to resonate with the experiences of those marginalized voices, silenced by the powerful. He tested the boundaries of his own fear, calling upon the depths of resilience that had often propelled him through tough assignments. Each recollection, training sessions, harrowing missions, tense negotiations, emboldened him to contemplate his own unseen might. It was complicated, but Marcus reminded himself of the many times he had walked into danger, armed with little more than a hunch and an unwavering belief in the mission's importance. What was more critical now than that mission but the reclamation of justice? The days in the cell turned into an hours-long campaign of mental fortitude. Despite the oppressive environment, he carved a space for ethical contemplation within his thoughts, pondering whether the risks were worth the potential fallout. The dichotomy of personal safety against the chance for systemic change gnawed at him, and yet, as the oppressive ceiling of concrete loomed overhead, he began to unearth the value of accountability, both his and that of the institutions cloaked in shadows. Each strategy he devised deepened his understanding of the systemic rot. Marcus had always been an analyst, but this case required more, a visceral connection to the narratives he'd encountered in fleeting conversations over dinner or during hours in the field. His articulate grasp of this unjust environment sharpened his focus. It transformed aimless rage into a cohesive impulse for reform. Then came the moment of revelation. While talking with Janelle about leveraging social media, he realized the power of stories. They held the potential to build advocacy, and as he spoke, he unveiled fragments of his uncle's past, the man who had fought against a similar current decades before he fell. Marcus envisioned presenting his uncle's experience as central to the narrative, a cautionary tale turned rallying cry. Suddenly, a once fragmented quest took on new urgency, not simply personal liberation, but a concerted effort to dismantle the palpable injustice that had ensnared his uncle and many like him. As he became engrossed in this new vision, a fierce resolve replaced his earlier trepidation. Questions clawed at him nonetheless. Would the agency let him expose their secrets? Was he potentially sacrificing his very career by challenging the status quo? He knew the repercussions could be dire, yet apathy felt like a sure route to oblivion. This realization propelled him to seize his interests and stake a claim on his own narrative. Throughout his career, Marcus had mastered the art of surveillance and situational awareness. Now he needed to apply those very skills to his own story. The door to his cell beeped open one morning, startling him from his thoughts. Guard stepped in and gestured for him to follow. As he moved through twisted corridors, his heart raced, anticipation blending with dread. Perhaps this was the moment for his first glimpse of what lay beyond the confines of these walls, a step towards reclaiming his freedom and the voice of justice he craved. His pulse quickened as they led him into a room where he could see faces familiar and unfamiliar, some filled with skepticism, others with unyielding determination. As he stood ready to confront these new allies and antagonists alike, a singular idea crystallized in his mind. The time for passive waiting was over. It was time to harness every ounce of will to ignite the fight against the very system that had almost consumed him. But would those he most needed trust him? Would they believe him? The opening volley for a battle that transcended his personal ordeal had just begun. He felt it. The heavy, electric anticipation of a showdown that could either reclaim his narrative or risk everything he fought for. As he prepared to speak, the stakes loomed large. The time had come to face not just the allegations but the monumental system behind them. Would he falter or soar in the throes of this newfound challenge? As Marcus entered the room, the air thickened with palpable tension. A long, polished table stretched before him, its surface reflecting the overhead lights in a harsh glare. He spotted Janelle seated toward the end, her steady gaze a soothing anchor amid the uncertainty. The faces before him varied from stern officials to sympathetic advocates, each person a potential player in the unfolding drama of his life. His heart pounded as he took a deep breath, centering himself. This was a pivotal moment, not just to state his side of the story, but to seize an opportunity to spotlight the larger issues that trapped so many others within a corrupt system. His mind circled the narrative he had crafted, layering his uncle's experience over his own to fortify the argument. Could they see the thread that connected their stories? Did they recognize the urgency of collective change? "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I stand before you today not just as a victim of this system, but as a conduit for the voices of those who've suffered the same fate." The chairs shifted subtly, skepticism mingling with curiosity in the room. He pressed on, sharing fragmentary glimpses into his childhood, his uncle's struggles against systemic oppression, and the stark reality of the kneeling shadows over their lives. Each recollection was a deliberate stroke of the brush on the canvas of his argument. Marcus knew he needed to evoke emotion, so he projected vulnerability, intertwining his personal narrative with a broader critique of injustice. But as he watched the faces in front of him, doubts crept into his mind. Would they dismiss him as just another disgruntled employee, or would they grasp the deeper implications of his testimony? He fought against the tide of anxiety as responses began to trickle in, some supportive, others skeptical. "We've heard these stories before," a stern-looking man interjected, his voice tinted with cynicism. "What proof do you have that this isn't merely a personal vendetta?" The word stung, a layered doubt that swept through Marcus. It felt like a moment ripe for defeat, yet it also nourished a fierce determination within him. He fortified his resolve, recalling the myriad of evidence he'd gathered, the documents that exposed misdeeds all too often concealed. "I have proof," he replied, his voice rising with conviction. "Not only of my situation, but of the patterns that have been ignored for too long." The assembled group shifted. He sensed their interest peaking. His pulse quickened again. This was the moment where his thoughts began to crystallize into plans, concepts bubbling forth like an uncontainable flood. The stakes had escalated, not just his own career, but a battle against the structures that perpetuated silence and compliance. "Let me tell you about the case of my uncle, a man who endured the repercussions of the same systemic failures. His struggle is not only his, it reflects the entrapment faced by many." He painted a vivid picture of his uncle's life, filled with the weight of unacknowledged sacrifices and the scars of relentless pursuits for justice. Each word hung in the air with both poignancy and urgency. As he shared the depth of his uncle's experience, he realized how closely aligned their spirits were. This collective pain could illuminate paths to healing, guiding him forward in the personal battle he faced at that moment. With more confidence than he'd known he possessed, Marcus concluded, "This is not merely about me, nor is this about personal vengeance. It's about accountability, about recognizing the trauma that countless lives have suffered in the face of systemic injustice. Together we can create a narrative that leads to real change." He watched as the tentative expressions of those before him began to shift, flickers of understanding igniting in their eyes. The silence was heavy, punctuated by the weight of misgivings and silent agreements. Janelle gave a slight nod of approval, but Marcus knew the journey had only just begun. Could they trust him to lead this charge? Would they be willing to set aside their skepticism and rally behind a narrative that challenged the status quo? His heart raced, aware that this pivotal meeting could set the tone for his path forward. The room vibrated with questions still unasked, revelations yet to be unveiled. How could he galvanize their support in this fight as they navigated through their own fears and insecurities? As the discussion opened for further questions, Marcus steeled himself for the challenge ahead. He knew the risks had multiplied, but so too had the possibilities. With newfound fervor coursing through him, he understood that confrontation was inevitable and crucial. It was time to rise, to stand firm in purpose, and to stake his claim not just for his future, but for the justice denied to so many. Little did he know, however, that lurking beyond the walls of that room were forces more sinister and more threatening than he had ever imagined. The stakes were much higher than personal redemption. It was a gamble not just for his life, but for the very fight against systemic corruption that was about to unfold. Would he be ready for what waited just out of sight? The murmurs within the room intensified, coiling around him like fog. Marcus felt the gravitational pull of expectation weighing heavily on his shoulders. He had spoken. Now, He needed to listen, to navigate the currents of skepticism and hope that pulsed together amid the anxious conversation. Taking a deep breath, he focused on the individuals seated around the table, reminded again that each came with their own stories, their own battles against a system that often felt insurmountable. The doubt he sensed was not simply directed at him, but at the very idea that anything could change. The assertive man who had questioned his motives leaned back, arms crossed, a fortress of cynicism. "Can you quantify this injustice?" He pressed again, embodying the archetype of the naysayer, someone who thrived on cultivating doubt rather than solutions. Marcus's mind clicked into overdrive, dissecting the implications of the query. Numbers, a language everyone understood, yet one he had ironically ignored in his emotional appeal. What if he could arm himself with the very data that seemed to escape the discussion? A flicker ignited in his thoughts. He would need to find a way to frame his uncle's story through the lens of statistical realities. "I can, actually," Marcus replied, adrenaline sharpening his focus. From the documented cases of wrongful termination to the systemic barriers faced by black employees in corporate environments, the evidence is substantial. My uncle was one among many who suffered the consequences of these oppressive systems. The energy in the room shifted slightly with his assertion, a collective breath of curiosity replacing the skepticism. Despite the risk, he felt emboldened. He could see, if even subtly, that he was sparking interest. They craved tangible proof. Would they be persuaded by the mere recounting of personal misery? Or could he bring them into a fuller reality, armed with facts and figures that demanded attention? As they continued discussions, questions collided with his internal monologue. He wanted to take charge of this conversation personally, not simply as a scratching surface of outrage, but as a clarion call for enlightenment. Each question asked brought forth layers of his resolve. His voice took on a steadier resolve as he recounted specific incidents without muddying them with raw emotion. Consider the uptick in discriminatory hiring practices, or how over 70% of complaints filed by employees regarding employment discrimination go unresolved. These are people, their lives matter too. Every story like my uncle's is another metric in this vast landscape of oppression. Janelle listened intently, her presence a steady beam of support. A hidden ally, she was the cornerstone in this effort, allowing him to recalibrate his strategy. As they moved through the discussion, Marcus realized he hadn't just been laying bare the social injustices. He inadvertently began crafting a blueprint for his new identity. He understood that to become effective in this fight, he must transform from a mere participant to a strategist, armed not just with emotional narrative but with tangible strategy, statistics and evidence to back the experiences he sought to address. Gradually, the ambivalence began to dissipate from the expressions around the room. Nods of agreement punctuated the air with growing momentum. Yet, a new tension twisted in Marcus's gut. This new path demanded an evolution from victim to advocate, not just for himself and his uncle, but for all who remained shackled to this silent madness. As the meeting progressed, conversations shifted into action plans. A proposal was laid out, a coalition to compile documentary evidence supporting claims of systemic injustice. Marcus's mind raced, envisioning the potential of this as an organized force. But a shadow lurked at the periphery of his satisfaction. Behind every nod and pledge of support existed a chance for betrayal from those who revered comfort over controversy. As he prepared to solidify this pivotal moment into motion, a knot formed in his stomach, aware that betrayal could school him in ways admiration could not. He looked to Janelle, gauging her reaction as they exchanged silent questions. Would he be able to muster the courage to defend not just his vulnerable heart, but also the delicate trust his allies placed in him? The stakes had risen dramatically, morphing from self-liberation into a complex game of allies and adversaries, one that required utmost vigilance. He could feel it, the unsettling sensation that their united front was on the brink of being shattered, much like the world he was attempting to disassemble with his voice. Whatever lay ahead, the urgency tightened in his chest. He had initiated something powerful, but beyond the threshold of this meeting, shadows whispered of a scrutiny that could undo him. Now, as they prepared to act, Marcus faced a crucial choice. Would he adapt and confront the impending onslaught, or risk losing everything, including the very purpose he had ignited with his testimony? The dawn of his fight had approached, and a storm brewed on the horizon, ready to test him like never before. The moment the meeting wrapped up, Marcus's adrenaline morphed into a potent cocktail of exhilaration and trepidation. He could still feel the weight of scrutiny in the air, as if the very walls were witnesses to his metamorphosis from passive observer to active participant in the fight against systemic injustice. Each step away from the table felt like walking on broken glass, a delicate balance between triumph and vulnerability. He stopped in the corridor, leaning against a cool wall. His breath came in ragged gasps as he tried to assimilate the repercussions of his newly minted identity. An advocate, he thought. It sounded empowering. Yet, the enormity of the responsibility made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Advocacy required more than just passion. It demanded accountability, and Lewis, the skeptical voice, loomed large in his mind. Could he truly quantify the struggles of others? He closed his eyes, envisioning the stark statistics he had summoned, numbers devoid of the nuanced pain of human experience, an uncomfortable knot twisted in his gut. What if those figures crumbled under scrutiny? Would the very same people who had expressed willingness to fight alongside him turn against him if he faltered? Marcus? Janelle's soft voice pierced through the fog of his thoughts. She approached, her gaze piercing yet warm, reflecting an understanding deeper than words. You did well in there. The room shifted because of you. He nodded, appreciating her affirmation but feeling an innate urge to let the gravity of the moment ground him. Yeah, but it's just the beginning, he replied, glancing back toward the meeting room as if it held secrets. We need data, testimonies. This can't just be an emotional appeal. If I want to steer this forward, I need a solid foundation. Then let's build it, she stated, unwavering. We can start reaching out to organizations, gathering information, connecting with those who have similar experiences. We won't rely solely on the metrics. We'll weave the human element into the narrative. Her confidence struck a chord in him. Marcus had spent years fighting inner battles, wrestling with the ghosts of doubt that whispered of inadequacies. This was unfamiliar territory, yet Janelle's resolve pulled him forward, challenging him to shake off the residual fear. Let's do it, he affirmed, a newfound determination propelling his voice. The horizon felt closer now, but the terrain ahead loomed jagged. As they discussed the next steps, the past echoed behind him in painful flashes, reminders of his uncle's struggles and his own battles with insecurity. The initial excitement of the meeting now transformed into a critical inquiry. Who would they contact for data? Which voices needed to be amplified? Hours later, as night fell and the hazy light of the city spilled through the office windows, Marcus found himself hunched over a laptop, scouring online resources. Each click solidified a growing resolve. His fingers danced over the keyboard, drafting emails to local advocacy groups, research institutions, and others who could provide a broader landscape of support. Yet as the hours stretched, unease began to bubble under the surface. Would these organizations see a kindred spirit in him, or merely view him as another young man eager to capitalize on a cause? An unshakable thought flickered. What if this endeavor drew the worst of the scrutiny he had feared? His phone buzzed, pulling him from spiraling thoughts. A message from Janelle appeared. How's the research coming? Ready for tomorrow? Nodding to himself, he texted back a simple affirming emoji but felt the weight of integrity bear down more heavily now. Each connection he made would increase exposure, raising the stakes of their coalition. The spotlight could either elevate their message or highlight vulnerabilities. He held his phone tightly, the ambient noise of the office fading away as introspection pulled him inward. But what lay ahead of him? The thought loomed large in his mind. Would they discover allyship or betrayal? A realization washed over him. He wasn't only building a coalition, he was forging a new legacy, one that could either shatter into fragments or solidify into a formidable force of change. His resolve hardened. Tomorrow marked a new chapter, one defined by transparency and challenge. He would craft his narrative not just from the facts, but through lived experiences. As he prepared for rest, Marcus breathed deeply, fully aware of being at a crossroads. The clock ticked ominously, a lifestyle of calculated risk pooling on the horizon. The day would demand more than data. It would call for courageous encounters and potential betrayals, and in the shadows lurking ever closer, awaited a challenge that could reshape everything he was fighting for. Who would he confront next in this dangerous new game? Marcus's eyes flickered open to the soft hum of his alarm clock, the stillness of dawn whispering promises of challenge. He lay there, the weight of anticipation heavy on his chest. Today was not just another day. It marked the beginning of a pivotal journey. With resolute determination, he pushed off the covers and let the morning light filter through the window, illuminating the doubts that clung stubbornly to the edges of his mind. He dressed deliberately, aware that appearances might play a key role in shaping perceptions. Dressing smartly wasn't just about looking competent. It felt like donning armor against the uncertainty that lay ahead. Each button fastened was a tether to confidence, stitching together a resolve that threatened to unravel under scrutiny. Walking to the office felt like traversing through a labyrinth. He navigated familiar streets, but his thoughts spun wildly. Today, he would be meeting with heads of organizations that had, until recently, seemed like distant giants in the field of advocacy. His inbox, now filled to the brim with responses, bore witness to his attempts to forge connections. Would the responses give him the validation he craved or reaffirm the insecurities that haunted him? As he entered the bustling office, he spotted Janelle, her focused energy cutting through the chatter. "You ready for this?" she asked, her tone buoyant but laced with shared anxiety. "I think so," he replied, surprise tinging his voice. "I've compiled the information from the organizations. I know what I want to say, but..." "But what?" Janelle urged, leaning in closer, the corners of her mouth curving in a gentle encouragement. "What if I can't articulate it the way we need? What if they see me as an outsider?" The words tumbled out, echoing the insecurities that had plagued him for years. "Then you show them why you belong here," she said firmly, her intensity igniting something inside Marcus. Those were the words he needed, a reminder of purpose that might dim the shadows of self-doubt. They moved into a small conference room, the scent of coffee wafting through the air, a comforting miasma against their mounting tension. Soon, the first representative arrived, a tall, sharp-dressed woman with an air of authority. She introduced herself as Naomi, the director of a prominent advocacy agency. Marcus swallowed hard, feeling the knot in his stomach tighten. The conversation began with small talk, but Marcus could barely focus. Janelle took the lead, expertly navigating the formalities, yet he found himself confronting the walls he had built over years. Each flicker of doubt that arose felt more like a personal indictment than mere insecurity. As the session progressed, Marcus sensed an opportunity to step into the light. He bridged into the conversation, carefully weaving together the statistics he'd gathered with the human stories that demanded attention. The room pulsed with interest as he spoke, creating connections between data and personal struggles that resonated deeply within him. He witnessed the shifting dynamics in real time, eyes widened, nods of recognition shared among the attendees. He was breaking through. But just as things started to flow, Naomi posed a question that struck hard. "Marcus, what actual experiences can you bring into this?" It felt like a spotlight, exposing the very core of his identity. Accountability surged through his veins. Here was confirmation that passion alone wouldn't suffice. His heart raced as he considered the sincerity behind his statement. He spoke from the heart about his uncle's hardships, the systemic barriers that had seemed insurmountable, yet were undeniably personal. These stories were woven into the very fabric of his being, and as he poured them forth, he could sense a shift. Judging eyes softened. Understanding dawned. He was not just a statistic or a young man eager to fight. He embodied the struggle himself. The discussion that followed was profound, filled with shared ideas, mutual respect, and validation. Each word he spoke ignited more than conversation. It sparked commitment. By the time the meeting concluded, laughter had replaced tension, and tentative alliances were underway. As they left the room, Janelle, glowing with pride, congratulated Marcus. You weren't just advocating, you were connecting. That's a powerful step. Each affirmation filled him with a blend of hope and disbelief. Yet lurking underneath was a pressing question. Had he just opened a gate that couldn't be closed? As others rushed out for lunch, Marcus felt ensnared, uncertainty creeping in. Would he be prepared for the next meeting, where the stakes might become even higher? There were whispers of larger organizations awaiting his proposal, and the weight of expectation pressed heavily against his chest. Returning to the office, surrounded by the warm chatter of engagement, his internal compass spun wildly. The faces of those he fought for swirled in his mind, reminding him why he had embarked on this journey. The momentum was reaching a boiling point, but was he truly ready to embrace the mantle of responsibilities that accompanied that heat? In that charged silence, he resolved to face whatever challenges emerged. A sense of clarity settled within him as he prepared to delve deeper into the murky waters of his advocacy work. If he was to build this legacy, to morph the vulnerabilities into strength, it would require more than data and narratives. It required him to confront adversities that pushed against everything he thought he knew. Little did he know, a confrontation with a formidable adversary was lurking just beyond the horizon, waiting to test the very fabric of his convictions. Was he truly ready for the storm that approached? Marcus sank into his chair, the sound of laughter and conversation fading into an indistinct backdrop. He leaned back, trying to absorb the triumph of the meeting, yet a sense of heaviness settled in. The laughter of his colleagues felt distant, as if it belonged to a world he was yet to fully inhabit. Moments of connection, he realized, couldn't mask the imminent storm he sensed brewing in the distance. Suddenly his phone buzzed, jolting him from introspection. The sender was an unknown number. Curiosity piqued, he opened the message. It read, "Marcus, I've heard some interesting things about you. We need to chat. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bring your best pitch." No signature, no further explanation. An unexpected urgency ignited within him, a call to arms in the battlefield of his aspirations. "Everything all right?" Janelle's voice cut through his thoughts, concern mingling with inquisitiveness. "Got a message from someone I don't know," he replied. "It's a meeting request." His fingers tapped nervously against the desk, the rhythm reflecting the tumultuous thoughts spiraling in his mind. "Could be a good opportunity," Janelle suggested, her expression brightening. "You've gained traction. People are talking about the impact you made today. Or it could be a setup," Marcus countered, his voice low. "What if it's someone trying to challenge me?" The knowledge of previous competitive encounters loomed large in his mind, the ghosts of those who had undermined his credibility lingering like an unwelcome shadow. "Then that's a chance to shine," Janelle encouraged with an intensity that reminded him of their earlier conversation. "Do you realize how far you've come? You're capable of handling anything thrown your way." Fueled by her encouragement, he took a deep breath, trying to shove aside the anxiety gripping his chest. "Maybe I am," he muttered, more to himself than to Janelle. As the evening unfolded, Marcus found himself impelled to prepare meticulously for the next day. He transformed his apartment into a makeshift strategy center, littered with papers, articles, his uncle's story, and notes from the previous meeting. It felt more like war room planning than an ordinary pitch, which only heightened his resolve. Hours stretched on, and he dissected potential angles, rehearsed responses, and mentally braced for any curveballs. The looming question gnawed at him. Who was behind the message? What awaited him in that uncharted conversation? Each scenario was painted with shades of uncertainty, from a breakthrough to a legacy-altering confrontation. As fatigue began to weave its way through him, he paused to reflect on the journey that had brought him to this point. It wasn't just about data anymore. It was about the deeper truths he had unearthed during his advocacy, confronting wrongs, resisting the tide of complacency, and wagered hope on the strength of connection and honesty. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I won't back down," he whispered to himself, a declaration reverberating with newfound conviction. With those words enveloping him in a calming embrace, he finally succumbed to sleep, darkness splashing respite against the rising tide of uncertainty. Morning arrived like a charged atmosphere before a storm, and as the clock struck 9, he dressed with intention, donning his best blazer and the same sense of purpose that had fueled him the previous day. His phone chimed again and he quickly grabbed it, hoping it would bring clarity amidst the shadows. Instead, he found another message. "They're not just journalists. They are players in the game. Show them who you really are." This cryptic message served only to elevate his heart rate. The stakes were evidently higher than he had anticipated. As he stepped into the daylight, a cascade of adrenaline surged through him. He was no longer merely fighting against odds. He was on the front lines of something much bigger. With every step he took toward that mysterious meeting, doubts warred with determination, the tide of expectation rising and swirling like a tempest. As he approached the destination, he noticed a figure leaning against the building's exterior, a familiar, dangerous presence from his past. The air thickened, and he prepared to face not just any conversation, but a showdown that might redefine his trajectory. Would he rise above the confrontation waiting for him, or risk losing everything he had worked for? The moment of truth was at hand. Marcus steadied his breath, forcing himself to confront the chaotic whirlpool of thoughts and emotions colliding within him. The figure outside shifted slightly, and recognition hit him harder than anticipated. It was Ryan, a fierce critic from his past and a rival who had once challenged every step Marcus had taken within the industry. Their history was fraught with tension, veiled threats, and unspoken animosity, leaving Marcus acutely aware that today could be a defining moment. "Marcus," Ryan drawled, pushing himself off the wall, a sardonic smile spreading across his face. "Didn't expect to see you here, looking all sharp and ready for battle." Marcus narrowed his gaze, refusing to let Ryan's bravado unravel him. "What are you doing here?" "Let's just say I've got an invitation too," Ryan replied, his tone sharp yet intriguing. "And I wouldn't underestimate the potential of this meeting." A twinge of irritation mixed with curiosity clawed at Marcus. He couldn't ignore the possibility that this encounter could either destroy him or propel him further into the spotlight, but the stakes felt insurmountably high. "You're not here to help," he deadpanned, trying to regain control of the narrative. "Of course not," Ryan chuckled. "I wouldn't dream of it. I'm here to make my presence known, just like you should." The tension crackled between them like static, and Marcus knew the psychological game had begun. This was a moment of confrontation, yes, but more importantly, it was about self-assertion. He wasn't the uncertain newcomer navigating uncharted territory anymore. He had grown. The weight of bureaucracy had been replaced with a burgeoning confidence that begged to be tested. With each passing second, the anxiety that had woven tight around his chest began to unravel. "Look, Ryan, I'm not here to play games. I'm here to pitch a vision, something worth fighting for. It's time you recognize that." Ryan's smirk faltered briefly, replaced with a genuine intrigue. "Maybe you've changed more than I thought. But the game remains the same, Marcus. We're all vying for that coveted spotlight. You might shine bright today, but know this. It's a fickle flame." Those words hung in the air, a palpable reminder of the ruthless nature of their world. But instead of crumbling, Marcus felt something shift inside him. "Let them see the real me. It's time," he reaffirmed internally, as he turned away from the distraction Ryan posed. Stepping forward, he entered the building, focusing on the pitch that awaited him. The air thickened with conference room formality, casting an expectant aura over the gathering. Flashes of anxious faces met his as he scanned the room. Just as sweat began to gather at the nape of his neck, he locked eyes with the person at the head of the table, a well-known executive whose decisions dictated the future of countless projects. His presence rumbled with prestige and dominance. "Welcome, Marcus," the executive drew, a grin encircling his words. "I trust you're prepared to make your mark today." He nodded, verbally affirming his readiness while mentally positioning himself for the heavyweight confrontation to come. The landing strip of his thoughts was fortified, and with each heartbeat he felt a rejuvenating tide, the echo of his past struggles fueling momentum. But just as he steadied himself, Ryan entered behind him, striding toward a seat with an ominous air of confidence that could easily disrupt his precarious equilibrium. The realization hit Marcus like the sudden strike of lightning. The lines between ally and adversary had blurred dramatically in this moment. Could he still claim his truth in the face of Ryan's invasive influence? As he stood ready to present his ideas, a new question arose that would shape the trajectory of his agenda. Would this showdown unmask hidden potential, pushing him to uncover depths of strength he hadn't yet realized he possessed? Marcus took a deep breath, eyeing the expectant faces surrounding the boardroom with a mixture of determination and apprehension. The moment had arrived to not only pitch his vision, but to embody the authenticity he had so desperately sought. As the first words began to spill out, echoing against the polished walls, he could sense the pressure mounting, both from within and without. Would this moment serve as his breakthrough or his breaking point? Every word could either fortify his burgeoning reputation or expose chinks in his armor. The pitch was not merely for business, it was for his identity, his redemption. With every attempt to articulate his vision, he felt Ryan's eyes digging into him, a reminder of how far he had climbed and the obstacles still ahead. Would he rise above today, or would he falter, drowned in the shadows of his past? This was not just about ambition, it was about proving his evolution under scrutiny. Would the resolution he craved solidify today, or would the confrontation only amplify hidden insecurities, leading to the revelation of unforeseen complexities? The answers lay just beyond the threshold of his spoken words, and in that precarious limbo, he braced for an outcome that promised to metamorphose everything he thought he knew about competition, fear, and ultimately, himself. As Marcus stood at the helm of the conference table, poised to present, he felt the palpable tension in the room. It was no longer just about advocating for personal redemption. This was the crucible where he would prove himself as a change agent. The stakes had never been higher, and confidence simmered just beneath the surface, ready to erupt. Today I am here not only to share a vision but to redefine what accountability should mean within our institutions, he began, his voice unwavering. Each word was deliberate, intended to steer the narrative from mere statistics to a humanized account of struggle and resilience. We can't bury our heads in numbers without seeing the souls behind them. He glanced at Ryan, who sat across the table, his expression inscrutable. That rivalry felt faint against the urgency of the moment. The focus was on Marcus, and he sensed it, the energy shifting, the room collectively holding its breath. With every data point he shared, he illustrated stories of lived experiences, his uncle's legacy interwoven with his own struggles. He crafted connections between the systemic barriers faced by marginalized individuals and the dire need for implementation of equitable practices. His passion shone through, igniting discussions that sparked the room's intellectual vigor. As he unfolded his pitch, he noted heads nodding in agreement and interest glimmering in their eyes. A sense of accomplishment surged within. He was articulating truths long buried. Then came the moment of truth, a request for collaboration. Together, we can lead initiatives that hold organizations accountable. This isn't just about compensation for wronged individuals. It promises a better future for everyone, he concluded, his heart racing, eyes gleaming with integrity. He paused, allowing the room to absorb the gravity of his proposals. He was met with the murmur of contemplation and the weight of his aspirations hanging in the air. Just as the tension began to lift, Ryan interjected, choosing his words carefully. While I commend the emotional appeal, can you really expect a coalition to take shape when motivations hang in the balance? The stakes are high and we need a persuasive business case. A flicker of concern threatened to undo Marcus's composure. In that moment, he could feel old insecurities bubbling up. But instead of quavering, he harnessed that energy. It is precisely because the stakes are high that we must act. This isn't merely a business venture, but a moral imperative. If we do not embrace change, we risk remaining complicit in the perpetuation of systemic injustice. Murmurs surged in the room again, this time bolstering his stance. The executive's gaze sharpened, acknowledging the pivot in dynamics. They were looking beyond mere performance metrics. They wanted a narrative that tugged at the heart and mind alike. Marcus, I think you might be onto something. Another board member chimed in, a hint of excitement mixed with caution. If you can quantify the impact of these initiatives while addressing the emotional core, We could create a compelling case. Marcus felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through him, the trajectory of possibilities unfurling before him. This was not just a moment to push back. It was an invitation to reshape the landscape he had fought against for so long. "I will," he asserted confidently. "Develop a comprehensive impact report, drawing upon both the statistics of injustice and the emotional testimonies from our community." The room erupted with palpable energetic exchanges, excited voices now mingling amidst the authentic acknowledgement of a shared struggle. Conversations began branching out, ideas flowed, possibilities crystallized, and the lines between adversaries blurred as they began envisioning collaborative undertakings. Then amid this burst of creativity and potential, Marcus caught Ryan's gaze. In a surprising twist, his rival leaned forward with a newfound respect. "I've underestimated you, Marcus. Perhaps we can work together on this. If you think you can pull this off, I'll be in your corner." The stakes of their rivalry had shifted, each man transforming as the unified goal emerged: empowerment and justice. Marcus felt the weight of burdens lifted, the haunting tension diminishing. He was no longer fighting against undermining whispers. He was building alliances forged through shared purpose. The light grew brighter, illuminating not only their path but a potential legacy of reform. As discussions continued, a plan taking shape, ideas coalescing into a direction that held promise, Marcus couldn't suppress a smile. He was no longer just a name on a report. He had established himself as a catalyst for transformation. This was the moment where he conquered not just external challenges but the internal narratives that had followed him throughout his career. In that boardroom filled with stakeholders and skeptics turned supporters, Marcus felt the profound shift settle within him. He had harnessed his past struggles, the echoes of familial sacrifices, and reignited the fire of purpose. It wasn't just about vindication for himself but standing as a voice for the silenced. His uncle's legacy woven tightly into this new narrative of resilience. With every triumphant step he took toward his new vision, he recognized the weight of responsibility that success would bring. Today marked more than a simple victory. It became an acknowledgement of growth, a lived testament of his journey from uncertainty to the audacity of hope. The future loomed bright, and with it emerged new challenges. As they wrapped up discussions and identified actionable steps moving forward, Marcus's heart raced not with anxiety, but excitement. "I won't just meet this challenge, I will conquer it," he affirmed silently to himself. This was the extinguishing of doubt, the establishment of confidence backed by commitment to change. As he prepared to leave the room amid laughter and camaraderie, realization washed over him. He had not just achieved his goals but had also embraced the mantle of leadership. The transformation was complete. He was now an advocate, a partner in this endeavor and beyond all, a man risen from the shadows of doubt into the radiant light of conviction. With the weight of the world beginning to lift, he stepped out ready to face the challenges that remained ahead, to seek accountability, strive for justice, and lead with a sense of purpose that could inspire change not just in himself, but in an entire system. Now was the moment to ensure that his journey resonated beyond walls and boardrooms, but for every heart that had longed for liberty from oppressive systems. His future was unwritten. It was time to take the pen and author the next chapter. This is your moment. Support the journey of resilience. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories from inspiring figures like Marcus. Leave a like now to fuel this incredible narrative and let algorithms know that you crave these stories of triumph. Comment your reactions, theories, and experiences that resonate with this journey. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support and help amplify these powerful stories.